There's just 2.5 weeks to go before the end of the year, and investors are repositioning their investments selectively for the year ahead. We've seen the Nasdaq 100, Tesla and Marvel shares all roar ahead to brand new record all-time highs. My name is Jessica Amir. You're tuned into Moomoo's The Daily. Thanks for your company. Well, let's start with the big picture first. Investors are preparing for the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates this week by 0.25%. They're also bracing for the Fed to say less cuts are on the horizon next year, and that's because the US economy is growing stronger than expected. So what are investors doing? Well, they're selling out of bonds, and that's pushed up bond yields up to 4.4%. That's their highest level in 1 month, while investors are also buying the US dollar, believing that Trump's new trade policies will keep the dollar higher for longer, and that's taken the US dollar also to a month high. So what do you need to consider if you're investing? Well, firstly, given the backdrop and what we've just said, we've got a volatile week this week, plus we also have US retail sales data out and the Fed's preferred inflation gauge. Now, all these releases are coming, and that means volatility is expected to pick up. So what you do need to consider is that investors are selling out of the Dow Jones 30 stocks, such as Nvidia, Amazon, Salesforce. They're taking profits from these stocks, which is why they've continued to fall from their highs. And this has taken the Dow Jones Blue Chip Index down lower for the 7th straight day. That's its biggest pullback in days since 2020. Now, the technical indicators, bear with me, are suggesting the Dow Jones index does have more dark days ahead before it can resume its long-term bigger picture drive higher. Secondly, you need to consider that investors on Wall Street are backing the Nasdaq 100, and that is exactly why we're seeing the Nasdaq 100 hit new all-time high after all-time high. Investors are continuing to bet that stocks in the Nasdaq 100 will do well under Trump's new administration, and that's why the Dow Jones index rose, or rather the Nasdaq 100 rose to a brand new record all-time high on Friday. The Nasdaq 100 is now up 30% this year. As for stocks to watch that are making big moves to the upside, we saw Tesla shares break out higher. Why is Tesla shares moving up, and why did they jump 4% to a brand new record all-time high of $436.23 on Friday? Well, it's all about Tesla's earnings expected to jump markedly higher next year. And I guess there's a lot to be said about Tesla announcing the details of their cheapest EV yet. That is the Model Q, expected to be launched in the first quarter of next year. So the Model Q is expected to be priced at $30,000. That's about 46,500 Aussie dollars. And the new Model Q could even be as little as 25,000 US dollars. That's 38,800 Aussie dollars. Now, just bear with me. The Model Q is expected to boost Tesla's market share to 75% of EV sales. And that's a huge jump up from the expectation that Tesla is expected to I guess, amass about 45% market share. That's according to Bloomberg analysis. Basically, the Model Q is expected to drive Tesla sales higher, much more than we've seen from Tesla's Model Y and Tesla's Model 3. They already account for 95% of Tesla's deliveries. Both of those models last year, or over the past year, sold 1.7 million in total. Now, fresh analysis from Bloomberg is suggesting that Tesla's earnings could drive up 25% above Wall Street's estimates, thanks to this final detail about the Model Q launch in the first quarter of next year. So if you haven't considered a position in Tesla, now might be an opportunity. Also consider ETFs that have got leveraged exposure to Tesla, and there's plenty of those. As for other stocks making big moves, we've seen Marvel shares roar also to a brand new record all-time high. Marvel shares roared up 11% on Friday. Now, for those that don't know, they are an AI custom silicon chip maker. They basically proved their net worth, or they proved their worth on Friday. They signed a 5-year deal, a cloud computing deal with Amazon's AWS. Now, Marvel, this is not the first contract significant win that they've inked, not just with AWS, but they also have top tier hyperscale contracts with Meta and Microsoft. So indeed, I think this is why, if you haven't yet considered Marvell, perhaps this is another catalyst for you to have a look at Marvell. It is expected to be a key beneficiary of the next chapter of the AI spending wave ahead. So keep an eye on Marvell. Another stock making waves is Micron. We can see that on the screen. Micron is another chip maker breaking out higher. On Friday, they moved higher. I guess it's in anticipation of this week's earnings announcement. Micron is expected to, I guess, increase their market share in the high bandwidth memory semiconductor market. That's a mouthful. And of course, they're expected to grow on the back of greater chip demand from chip makers such as NVIDIA, as NVIDIA is ramping up AI chip production. Now, Micron last week was awarded a $6.2 billion federal US subsidy to boost, American semiconductor manufacturing. But Micron wasn't the only company that won a subsidy from the US, so too did Intel and TSMC. Keep an eye on Micron. As we said, they're expected to release their earnings this week. And I think given what we've seen with chip makers of late, you might be expecting some great numbers. And last but definitely not least, do consider that if you are investing in commodity companies, consider that metal prices are all lower. We're seeing silver down 1.4%. That's leading most losses in commodity markets. Copper, nickel, iron ore, and gold prices are all lower. Why is that? Well, we've got the high US dollar, but also we did have disappointing data out of China on Friday that basically showed that Chinese banks are borrowing far less than expected. But that narrative could change very quickly. You might be expecting commodity prices to turn around and move up this week if we see China announced a surprising interest rate cut. The market is not expecting a cut, but that could change narrative and surprise and delight commodity investors. For any information or analysis on the stocks that we've covered today, head over to Moomoo. Thanks for your company for the daily. I'm Jessica Amir, market strategist with Moomoo.